Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a thriller from South Korea, Korean language English subs, released in the year 2008, directed by Hwang Jin Kwon, and this film is called The Truck. It's also known as the 24 Hours to Die, so if you can't find it under one title, please look for it under the other. So the story of The Truck, you've got this truck driver who makes deliveries. He works very hard, but he's not getting much money for it. He barely makes enough to care for his young 7-year-old daughter. His wife died of a hereditary heart problem, which has been passed down to her, so he's very concerned about her well-being, but if he follows the doctor's orders, basically she can't exercise excessively and she has to keep a clean diet. So the father tries his best in order to maintain her health, but then one day at the playground she faints, and it turns out that the problems have been fast-tracked to the point where she needs a heart transplant. And so the father is desperate. He doesn't have the money in order to get this transplant, so he's willing to do anything in means to achieve this. And so he goes to this gambling den run by these gangsters, and this gangster basically challenges into a game of poker, but he actually cheats out this guy, and this guy the truck driver ends up losing a lot more than he had. And so he's desperate, he wants revenge, so he follows this gangster into these sets of corridors, and he comes into a room and he stumbles upon a gangland killing. Now the gangland killing is at the hands of this brutal boss, and instead of killing the truck driver as a witness, he says that if he's willing to dispose of these dead bodies in his truck, go to a secluded area, bury them, and if they're never seen again, not only will he spare his life, but he'll also give the money for the surgery. So this is an incentive too good to refuse. No matter how dodgy it seems, he's willing to do anything for his daughter, so he sets out on the perilous journey, but then he comes across a police officer on the side of the road who says that there has been a police escort crash and there is a serial killer that's escaped. So the serial killer is in the vicinity and the police officer wants to get to him as soon as possible. So not only does the truck driver have to hide the bodies from the policeman, but he also has to contest with this serial killer that is about to become involved in his life. And so it's going to turn into a deadly game of cat and mouse, and whether or not the truck driver can succeed in what he's trying to do is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Truck, aka 24 Hours to Die. When I saw the synopsis to the film and the idea that the movie was trying to execute, I thought this has the grounds to be an absolutely fantastic experience. When you think of South Korean thrillers, you think of I Saw the Devil, The Chaser, all these movies that really put South Korea on the map. And so every time I see a South Korean thriller, I'm very excited. But I was skeptical coming into this movie based on the fact that no one really talks about it. It has flown under the radar. And there are two reasons why movies can fly under the radar, especially from South Korea, is that number one, they're just underrated and they just have gone unnoticed, which is definitely the case with films such as No Mercy for the Rude or The Piper, movies that really hit me in a way where I was very surprised. And these are hidden gems, and hidden gems is a fun part of movie going, is that, okay, I wasn't expecting anything, but I got a lot out of it. And so for that, I was hoping that that would be the same case with The Truck. But then there's another reason why movies go unnoticed, and that because they're not very good, they're very disposable. And so I had my hesitations coming into it, but I had a lot of curiosity and a lot of excitement that The Truck would deliver something, because it had the potential to be something so special. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, this movie hasn't been talked about for a very good reason, and that reason is that it's very mediocre. I thought this movie is way too short for its own good, and it just doesn't have the capability to execute all the potential that it has, and it just comes across as a bit of disappointment. Now, to start off with, I will say that there are positives to The Truck. The overall production of the film looks very good, which is very typical of South Korean cinema. There is a lot of, it appears that quite a bit of money has been thrown into this, and I thought that the predicament of this truck driver at the start of the film was relatable. Is that what will you do for the love of your daughter? And that he will actually go into the deep recesses of humanity and the darkness of humanity and deal with shady people in order to get the best for his 7-year-old. The 7-year-old daughter that's very innocent. And so this is the case of fatherly love. And so I thought, alright, well, I can relate to this. Is that this is something I like. I like this guy. At the start of the film, it's very quirky, and you get the sense it's a family sort of drama. And then as the movie progresses, it starts to get more and more darker. But you never lose the sense that he's doing it for all the right reasons, although he's breaking the law. And is he going to get caught? You know, the bodies in the back of the truck, I thought, well, when he stops at police checks, is he going to be uncovered? Is everything going to go to hell? And so I thought, all right, well, it does build potential at the start of the film. I thought the acting was okay. As I said, it's a very quirky sort of film, as that it almost feels like a light-hearted drama at the start of the movie, but the father does a fairly decent job. And when he starts to go into the darkness, I thought, all right, well, his reactions to certain events were fairly decent. And then you've got the villain in the film that I'm not going to give away, but I thought he was very unnerving. It's just the look in his eyes. I thought, this is what a psychopath looks like. And so the movie doesn't go for too long, as I said, which is good for some people, but for me, I think it's the start of its problems, is that the movie doesn't sustain any sense of tension, is that whether or not it's the fact that the movie goes into lulls, so instead of actually keeping you on the edge of your seat and being a white-knuckle thriller, you're allowed to catch your breath at multiple points, and because of that, it's stop, start, stop, start. It feels like a very disjointed experience, and that disjointed experience does become tiresome, and you're checking your watch well before the end. You've also got the problem of the characters. They don't really go into depth, so although at the start of the film I cared for the situation of this truck driver, the further it goes on, the more detached I became, and because I started to become more and more detached, again, that's what halts the progression of the film, and that's something I really didn't like. I just thought, alright, well, what does this movie want to be? I think it tries a little bit too much within the time period that it has, and a lot of great South Korean cinema with the 2-hour films, such as I Saw the Devil, The Chaser, and these movies are allowed to fit in all these ideas and flesh out these ideas, but because this movie goes for an hour and a half, it's never able to flesh those ideas to a point where you feel satisfied. And I just thought there are a lot of unanswered questions because the movie is a little bit too short for the material that it wanted to depict. And so that was the biggest problem. And then you've got a huge problem with the ending, and I thought the ending really basically symbolised what the whole film was. It was rushed. Is that the ending, there's a lot of questions that I still had, but then it finishes. And I thought, well, did they run out of time? You know, did the budget constraints mean that, you know, they couldn't actually finish what they were setting out to do? And so it's just a really bitter taste in the mouth at the end of this movie, which basically capped off what the film was. It's just a bitter disappointment. Now, as I said, no sustained sense of suspense, and the overall idea wasn't fleshed out to a point where I thought it went anywhere near its potential. And so this is a movie that you can dispose of. It's very, very mediocre, and it's not one of those South Korean films that's going to get you excited. So I'm only going to give The Truck 1.5 stars. Really, really disappointing. Don't even bother. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.